Hey YouTube, it's Luton Larry. I'm back with another video. Today I'm going to be doing something totally different that I've never talked about before, but I've recently started getting into the realm of sports cards investing. And I know, crazy, right? Because everybody's getting into it, but it's actually been very lucrative and I've been enjoying the hobby a lot. So the point of me making this video is it's an outside perspective of somebody that has not been in the hobby and is brand new and has been able to find packs pretty much consistently every time I go. As a kid, I used to collect sports cards. I was never like crazy into the hobby, but I like to have my favorite players. I was also huge into Pokemon. So after I kind of saw the boom and everything, it was something I wanted to get into. I'm always looking to try new things and diversify myself into different types of content. So with that being said, if you guys do find this video helpful or you enjoy it, please like and subscribe. I'm going to be doing a lot more stuff like this and also integrating my channel in a different way. I also wanted to give you guys a huge shout out that we just surpassed 640 subscribers. When I first started the channel, I would have never imagined that it would have grown to the way it has, and I'm so thankful for everybody that continues to watch my videos. So with that being said, let's get into the content. So before we get started, I think it's important to actually talk about what kind of stuff's going on in the market and what we're actually seeing. So when I started, I got very educated after I watched that video. I put in literally hundreds of hours since then trying to find out like the best types of cards, you know, researching brands, all of that stuff. So if you're brand new to the hobby, then obviously the legwork is the hardest part, and you want to make sure you're educated before you're going in and buying packs. I think education's key because there's two people that are going to be entering into this hobby, right? There's the collector, somebody that just loves sports and loves to collect things, and then there's somebody that's going to be in it to make a profit. Maybe it's kind of just like a side gig, or maybe it'll even end up being your full-time source of income. You never know. The market's crazy, but it's also very volatile, like playing the stock market. So we're going to go ahead and say that step number one is to make sure you're educated on the market before you enter. I can't emphasize that enough because you might hear things and like see a crazy boom. I also want to specify that you don't have to have a lot of money to enter into this hobby. There's several things that you guys can do to get into that. I'll kind of touch on that a little bit, but that's not necessarily what this video is going to be about. So the important thing, where can we find cards? So there's two major retailers to my knowledge. There is Target and Walmart. So as of recently, Target has put on limitations on to how many sports items you can buy. Before that, as I was coming up into the hobby, Target was starting to limit it per customer. Like if they got a small shipment, they would say, okay, each person in line is going to be getting, you know, 2 packs of each and then up to 10 or whatever. So now, as of recently, supposedly corporate Target has started limiting everybody on the amount of cards that they can even buy. So supposedly it was supposed to be SKU locked, right? So you could only buy like 2 or 3 per person of each type of item. But now it seems like the Targets in my area are literally just limiting sports cards to 3 packs per person. But this can also have implications, right? This is going to make it a little bit more scarce in my opinion, but also make it to where more people can get cards. So like if you're not the first, you know, 5 to 10 people in line, you actually have a shot at getting something good. You might get a mega box, you might get a black, like, you know what I mean? Sometimes it's just nuts that you end up with just a couple cello packs, but makes it a little bit easier to get, but it's also creating more competition to get the better stuff, so people are lining up earlier. So in Northeast Ohio Sports Cards video, he was talking about putting in the legwork, right? So I'm going to kind of go through my process of what I did that helped to make me successful. Within my first week, I made over $1,000 profit selling cards because I put in the work and I went around and like started finding buying patterns and all of that stuff. So I'm going to get in that in a minute. So right now, I think there's this misconception, right? Typically, historically, it was a vendor that would go in and would stock these Targets or whatever, but to my knowledge, what it seems like is there's a UPS truck that comes in every single day for Target, or sporadically, obviously, whenever they're getting their shipments, and then the vendor would come in once a week and he would release all that product to the public. So right now, it seems like Target and I guess Walmart is following suit with this. Supposedly, I haven't heard anything more about this, but Walmart's supposed to be limiting people on their supplies of this stuff. But now it's basically Target is letting people line up, or they'll throw you in a queue system every single day, and that's how you're going to get your cards, right? So they're not waiting on the vendors to come in and stock now. They're literally pulling it out because the demand is so high that they're pulling these cards out and letting people line up in stores or taking them into their little queue thing and texting you when it's your turn. So it's very hard to get a hold of right now, and it's very time sensitive. So the legwork and what I did, everything is different. I'm in the Columbus market right now, and my buying patterns and that when they get their trucks and stuff is going to be very different from when you guys will see yours, depending on where you're at. So what I did is I went into 4 to 5 Targets in my area every single day for about a week. And they would have different employees. I'd go in at different times. I would look at the shelves to see if any types of products were moved. And I would also start talking to the employees. I can't say how key this is. you're gonna get blown off, right? Some of these employees just don't care at all, and they're like, please get out of my face. I don't care about your sports card habit, da 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 da. But you will find a couple cool ones that if you start talking to them, they're gonna kind of give you the scoop and the lowdown. So if you start talking to them and just like, maybe not introduce yourself, but come off personable and be like, hey, like I'm trying to get into sports cards. Is there anything you can tell me? So for me personally in Columbus, the UPS from most stores are going back to the electronics section, right? So every morning I line up, it just depends. Really, I was getting there around 9:30, 9:45, and I was fine. I was one of the first 5 people in line, but it's getting more competitive now. So really putting in that legwork and seeing the way that each Target operates is super key. The Targets in your area may be different than mine. The Targets in your area may still have the vendors coming out once a week. I actually just found a location recently. I found the vendor's pattern. They changed it though. So I went there today, which is one of the days that they stock in this particular store, and the vendor came at like 8 a.m., but I guess they're putting product out now every single day. So I missed out on that. But going in every single day and just talking to the employees around in the card section, the people at the front desk at Target, like they will give you a good idea of what you can expect. Now they're gonna give you horror stories, because this was kind of freaked me out. I was like, man, I am never gonna get cards. So some of the employees are gonna try to freak you out and kind of like dissuade you in a way, is kind of what it felt like. They would be like, oh yeah, dude, there's no way that you're gonna get cards ever. Like, these people are maniacs. They line up here at, as soon as we open until, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They follow the vendors around store to store, get their license plate. It's almost like stalking. And I was like, what? Like, no freaking way that somebody is that crazy about sports cards that they're gonna do all that. Which, these guys are pretty crazy. It's very competitive, and they're gonna go every day. I'm starting to meet people that I'm seeing every day when I go. So you just have to realize that you're gonna have to be on it. If you want to get cards, you need to be on it, okay? You need to figure out what time that UPS truck comes every single day, and you need to get there at least, at bare minimum, 1 hour to stand in line if you want anything good. Now, I will say a couple of times I've gone in, like one time I went in at like 5 p.m. This was during my first round when I was kind of putting in the legwork to the store closest to my house. They had one NBA Hoops blaster pack available. So, that was pretty wild, right? That was a good find, good come up. For me personally, I'm into kind of like ripping the wax, but I'm also into kind of flipping it. So that was kind of my entry point into the hobby. So you have to realize, all right, I know people are going to probably comment on this video and say, that's terrible, you're buying the cards and flipping them. Look, if you don't do it and I don't do it, somebody else is literally going to do it. So like, who's it going to be? Is it going to be the person that gets there earlier? Or like, you have to keep that in mind. So like, it's all about supply and demand right now. My philosophy on it is I don't charge max value. I will charge a value that is under what people are charging, but still reasonable to where I'm making a profit. That way I can start getting cards on my own. So making this money from cards, I've now been able to invest in 2 different PSA 10 rookie cards. I have a Giannis PSA 9 rookie. I have a ton of like other cards that I've been investing in, right? So through this, I've been able to rip some cards. I've ripped like a Justin Herbert rookie out of an Optic pack. I think I have 3 Herbie rookies, a Joe Burrow rookie, Tua. Like, I have so much stuff just from the packs that I rip, but I'm also using that money to like kind of make a profit and be able to get myself into the game. So to kind of loop back on this, I think the most important thing that you can do is to put the legwork into this and actually figure out a schedule time. Figuring out what time that UPS truck is going to be so key, and also where they keep it at. Like I said, for me, it's in electronics, right? So I know that if I get at my Target at, say 9:30 in the morning, that's when I would try to get there. 9:30, 9:45. I know that truck at my store usually came around 11 a.m., okay? So I would stand there for an hour and 15, hour and a half. Usually I'm guaranteed something good. Sometimes you stand there and UPS doesn't bring anything at all, and that's just kind of the toss-up that you have. But in the hopes that you do stand there and get something, you can either A, rip something really, really good, or B, you're gonna make a little bit of money to get yourself into the hobby. And I think that that's something that we don't really realize. People think you need a lot of money to get into this. You can literally get into this hobby on startup costs by selling these packs. Now, another option that you can do with the legwork piece, you can also try to figure out a vendor pattern. If the Targets are doing it that way in your area, then you're still gonna have to figure out when the vendor comes. Best thing I can say to do is go in every single day at the same time, maybe alternate weeks. If you don't find anything out one week, let's say you go in every day at 4 p.m. I don't know. If people work, you have lives, I get it. So you go in every day after work at 4 p.m. and then you don't notice anything's different. None of the card boxes are moved. None of the employees know anything. Say, okay, I'm going to change it up. One day I'm going to come in at noon and see if anybody knows anything different, right? So you can kind of start to get these patterns based off the way that things change. So Walmart, on the other hand, is a whole different beast. I have never had any luck at Walmart finding literally anything. I think I went to there one time and I found a playoff hanger, right? So it was like 15 bucks. That was the only thing that they had though. So Walmart beforehand, they didn't have any policies in place. They didn't watch anything, right? So the vendor would come, they would throw everything on the shelf. You'd have one guy that was, he's been doing this for a while in the area. He knows when the vendor comes approximately, would stand there for maybe 2 to 3 hours, buy $2,000 worth of wax, and that dude's out the door. You know what I mean? So Walmart now has kind of taken the step, from what I've heard. If you guys have heard anything differently, again, please feel free to leave that in the comments. This is all very vital information for everybody, I think. But that's what they were doing. They weren't limiting anything. They were literally letting any Joe Schmo buy as many cards as they want. So I think like the biggest thing out of all this is just don't get caught up in the idea that you won't find cards, because I promise you, if you put in the legwork and listen to what I'm saying, I promise you, you will find cards in store. It may not be this week, it may not be next week, it may not be the week after, but eventually after you get that time in and you start going to these different stores, I don't know, if you have, let's say, like if you're at work and you have Targets, 10 to 15 minutes within each other, take like a week. Just go to 3 different Targets every day after work and talk to the employees there and see if they can tell you anything. Again, I'm like 90% sure that's how all Targets are operating now. It doesn't seem like they're utilizing the vendors very much at all, if any, anymore. So finding out when that UPS pattern comes in, that's going to be key. Now, if you're not able to come in when the UPS hits your Target, then you might be in a world of trouble, and that's going to be really tough to find something. But hopefully with these limitations in place, you guys will be able to find something at least a little bit. So I kind of touched on the Target that I went to on Wednesdays that where the vendor would stock. So typically that was a good payday, right? You'd go in there, you'd get some Mega, some blasters, and they'd usually have some good stuff because it was an accumulation. So I went in today on Wednesday, the day that I was filming this, and they didn't have literally any sports cards. So I guess UPS came in today at 8 o'clock, or the vendor did or something, and they were completely wiped out. They had absolutely nothing in stock, which was very atypical that this store in particular had nothing. I found it to be so weird. But, this store is one of the farthest away from me. I drove 25 minutes to get absolutely nothing. And that's just kind of the way of the game. That's the way it is. But today I learned something. Today I learned that I need to call in and ask from now on how they're doing it. That's also a way that you could do it, right? You could call in and say, hey, did you guys get any sports cards in today? Be like, cool, do you know what time they came in? Do you know if you guys got a lot? Did you guys stock it? How does it work? Did you guys have a queue system? These are all things that are going to be super helpful to you. I'm not saying pick up the phone and call them every single day, because that might irritate them. I don't know. But I mean, if you can't make it to more than one Target, that's an option. I mean, you can literally call. Or if you're on your lunch break at work at 11 or 12, call in and say, hey, did you guys get any sports cards in? Like, there's multiple different things that you guys can do, and it just comes down to putting the legwork in. And there's one final piece I really want to touch on, since I've pretty much hammered down that legwork is the most important part. Developing the routine, figuring out when these are stocked, figuring out how your particular Target does things, is just to get educated. So what I mean by the get educated piece is, what kind of stuff am I going to be buying? One thing that I didn't do before going in is research all the different kinds of packs, because it's overwhelming. There's a lot, right? So for the NBA, you have Prism, draft pick Prisms, you have Optic, you have Donruss, you have so much stuff that you have to look at, and you're like, wow, like what is all this stuff? What's the value? So that could be very overwhelming. So if you really take the time to get educated and maybe go on eBay and just type in like NBA cards or NFL cards and kind of get an idea of what everything is, you're gonna have an idea of what you need to look for. So to kind of wrap this video up and summarize everything we just talked about, I know I said it a million times, but put in the legwork. You will not be disappointed. Make calls if you have to. Go in every single day, ask questions to the employees, take a picture of where the cards would be if anything's moved and changed. These are all indicators that they were cards. And number 2, just get educated. Don't go in there and spend money on different things that you don't need. I'm going to give one more example. Heritage Baseball right now, that was the only thing they had in stock at my Target today. It was a hobby box for $120. Nobody wants that. I pulled it up on eBay and it was selling for like $89 on eBay. It's literally under market value. So just make sure you're educated on the types of things you buy and you will be great. I think that's going to pretty much wrap up everything I have to say about this. I would love to discuss it more. If there's anything that I didn't explain clearly, or any questions that you guys have about the video, I hope this is super helpful to you as a newcomer. Just kind of like some of the pieces that I've gathered and things that have been so successful for me. Putting in the legwork, that's key. Being educated, that's key. If you guys enjoyed the video and you guys scored some packs and find this helpful, please like, subscribe, share it to your friends. I appreciate you guys. Thank you. Peace.